In this evening's visit to the workshop, we're going to be servicing dropper posts. Now, there are a lot of dropper posts on the market, and a lot of them kind of work slightly differently, but a lot of them work more or less the same. The clues to look for whether this service will work for your post are if it's cable actuated and you can't adjust the air pressure. If there's no pressure adjust, it's a sealed gas cartridge in there. Not unlike the thing that holds up your car boot door. So with that in mind, it's actually a very, very simple service. There's not really any user serviceable parts in there. It's basically a strip down and clean. So it's actually quite a quick job. You can do with some really basic tools. So what tools will you need for this task? A strap wrench, a small adjustable wrench. Depending on model, you may also need some small Allen keys. You'll need some degreaser and cleaner. You'll also need some suspension specific grease like Slick Honey. And not to mention some shop lubricant. Now, almost all cable actuated dropper posts that have a sealed cartridge inside them are serviced in the same way. The sealed cartridge means you cannot adjust the air pressure to increase or decrease the rebound speed. It's just fit and forget. It's an incredibly reliable design with not many moving parts, and is actually quite a straightforward task to take apart. We essentially have to remove the top collar, remove the actuating mechanism from the bottom. There are a few designs that you'll see for these, but they all kind of work in the same way. We'll start off by placing the strap wrench around the top collar. You may have to leave the dropper in your bike frame to do this, as your bike frame can act as the perfect vice to get this job started. With that removed, we can move our attention to the bottom of the post. Now, the actuator mechanism simply screws in to this part of the shaft that goes into the bike frame. We'll remove this with an adjustable wrench, and to ensure we don't damage it, we're going to wrap a shop rag around the mechanism. There we go. With some models, part of the actuator mechanism is bolted on to the bottom of the shaft with 2 Allen bolts. If you simply remove these, you're able to remove the remaining part of the actuating mechanism from the bottom of the shaft. Some models, this removes itself as you unscrew the main portion of the actuator from the bottom of the post. It will be model dependent. The most important thing here, when there are any variations depending on your model, are to go slowly and methodically, laying out the parts as you go, perhaps taking photographs on your phone for reference to aid with reassembly afterwards. Not my fault if you break it. With the top collar loosened and the actuator mechanism removed, we can simply pull the 2 parts of the post apart. At the bottom of the top post, you'll see we have some keys. These keys fit into grooved slots within the portion of the seat post that goes within the frame. They ensure that the post travels up and down smoothly and doesn't have any rotational play. In some models, these are brass. On some cheaper models, they're nylon. Regardless, always inspect these for wear and damage and make sure where they're not supposed to move, they're solid, and where they can be removed, do so, and inspect for wear and damage. Whenever you are removing a plastic or nylon bush, always be very careful not to damage it, as it can be brittle, and if you break it, then you'll have to try and source a replacement part. There's usually also a bush underneath the seat post collar. Again, sometimes white, sometimes black. Don't forget about it. Gently remove it from the post. That way you can clean and reuse it as well. Back to it. With disassembly and cleaning complete, it's simply a case of reassembly, reversing this process, and adding a little bit of fresh grease. Now, a little bit of grease on the moving part of the shaft and in where the keys and bushings go will help hold everything in place. And again, a little bit, very light amount on the portion that goes into the gas cartridge as well, just the tiniest sliver. It's very important to put the bushes and keys back in the order that they came off. For example, we wouldn't be able to get the bushing that goes underneath the collar on once we have the keys and the lower bushing on. So the order you took them off in, 1, 2, 3, 4, becomes the reverse order for putting them back in. So seat collar, keys, lower bush. On some models, the lower bush has an index so that it has to be placed in the correct orientation. Some of them is just a smooth round bush, so it's not a problem. Now it's simply a case of putting the upper portion of the post into the lower portion. Now the upper portion, the seat clamp has an angle to it. So there's a front and a back. The lower portion also has usually markings of some kind to go onto the back. So unless you want these sticking at the front, ensure that you insert it the correct way around so that any markings and numbers are at the rear of the post. Otherwise, it's going to look full on amateur hour. So I have the rear and the rear. Slot them in. Allow the bushes to go into the guides in the lower portion of the post so it can move smoothly. Push the seat collar bush into place. Bring the seat collar in and then screw it until tight, and then use the strap wrench to cinch it down fully. Again, you may need to use your bike frame as a vise for this, as you are essentially trying to tighten a round thing on a round thing when your hands are covered in grease. And then depending on your model and mechanism, attach the lower actuator mechanism, cinch up any bolts that are required, or in this model, with this style of actuating mechanism, it's simply the bottom part of the shaft screws into it, and then this screws into the master part of the whole post. Job done. All you got to do now is stick it back in the frame, put your saddle back on it, and go ride your damn bike. So that's how you clean and strip down and service one of these types of dropper posts. Really simple task, bare bones tools. They're really simple and they don't tend to fail very often, but that regular maintenance and just cleaning them out will make them go significantly longer, and Lord knows it's going to last longer than any reverb that's ever existed on this planet. If you like this video, give us a like and subscribe. Hope you found it useful. Have a look at our other dropper post service videos. As always, thanks for watching. Happy trails. There's nothing quite like finding a cup of tea you've forgotten about and being like the perfect temperature. So it's like, because you have that initial kind of like, oh no, it's going to be cold, and then the relief and knowing that's just right. Second later and it would have been ruined.